Hey there, you guys. I wonder how distance learning is going for you. I'm sure it's probably like a lot of people. You're glad to be at home and sleep in, but it's probably only been a couple days and you're kind of getting bored walking around the house trying to figure out what to do. Um, I know you're not excited about missing out on being in class with me because, after all, it's got to be our favorite class, right? Anyway, um, I normally, I would go over homework from the previous day, but according to the survey that you all took, it seemed like you did fine on the factor by grouping. So I'm not going to spend time going over that. Hopefully you've checked your answers and you feel good about it, and you're going to kind of review back over it before we go into um, the test or quiz that's coming up on Friday. I can't remember what I called it. If I called it a test or a quiz. I don't know. You can look on the calendar and see what it is. It doesn't matter. It's something that counts for a grade, and it'll be the last big grade of this quarter. So we want to make sure that we do well on it. You may be asking yourself, what is it going to look like to take a test or a quiz in math from home? And quite honestly, I don't know for sure what it's going to look like. I don't know if it'll be a quiz on Canvas that we'll be working through, if I'll just give you a document that you'll have to work out and be on your own honesty and integrity to not look at anything and then submit that on Canvas. I don't know. I might even send a copy of the test and quiz to your parents and have them proctor. So I just don't know. But you're not worried about that. I know. I trust you guys, and I know you're gonna do everything you can to study and prepare going into it, just like you would in class. So what I want to do today is I want to go through this review. So if you haven't already, hopefully you can print out the review document that I have posted for you. Again, just like everything, if you don't have access to a printer, then it's not that big of a deal. You can just use your own paper and just write down these problems. Just make sure you keep it in a nice, neat order, and I can see the numbers and see your work so that when you submit it, I can kind of tell if it's something that you're doing fine on or if it's something that you need extra help on. So anyway, go ahead and print that out, and I want you to have that. I'm going to work through a lot of these problems with you, not all of them, but a lot of them with you. And there's going to be something that's a little different that you're not used to. This video is going to be very interactive. In other words, there's going to be some places where the video will stop and it'll require a response from you. It might just be an open-ended question that I'm asking. It might be a multiple choice question. Whatever the case, you're going to have to respond to some of these questions before the video will continue on. And the thing is, it's not the video, it won't allow you to fast forward through, to skip steps. You'll have to kind of listen to the whole thing. And I will be monitoring your responses because that'll kind of help me know, hey, are there individuals that I need to reach out to and help with some specific things before going into this test on Friday. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to start up here with the first three. Notice the directions. It says we're going to factor using a common factor, and I know that you remember that's the first one we learned. So that means, is there something that's in all of the terms? So how about we look at number two? So if I look at number two, there are three terms here, right? And can you tell that it's true that there's a common factor of 2? And some of you might say, well, there's a common factor of 4, and that's true also. But remember, we want to take out the biggest common factor possible. So wouldn't 8 be a common factor of all three terms? If I take out an 8, I'm going to have xy plus, if I take 8 out of 24, that's going to be a 3y. And then if I divide 8 out of this last 8, wouldn't that be a minus 1? Remember, you can always check and know if you did common factor correctly, because if you were to distribute that 8 back in, you should get what we started with. Okay. Why don't we have you guys try number 3 and see what you think the common factor is, and go ahead and factor that out, and then we'll come back together and compare answers. Okay, so let's see. I think from all three terms, not only can I take out an x squared, but I can also take out a y. And so did you end up with xy squared minus xy minus x squared? Ooh, I wonder how you did on that one. Okay, so let's look at the next type. Then we talked about factor using a difference of squares. And remember, the key here is difference of squares is used when you have two terms, right? Common factor, up here we probably should have said, common factor, you can have any number of terms, right? Any number of terms. But difference of squares is used when you have only two terms. And let's see, how about we look at number 5, right? I have two terms, and they are both perfect squares, right? So I would factor this to be 6 plus 7x and 6 minus 7x. And I know sometimes you get caught up in thinking that the x term has to come first, but it doesn't. You just keep it in order that the original problem had, right? The original problem had the x's in the second term, so that's why I put my x's in the second term. Okay, why don't we go down to number 9. So if we look at the next type, we're talking about the trial and error. And then let's see, do you remember when to use the trial and error method? How do you know to use that one instead of the other ones? All right, did you guess it? Yep, trial and error is used when you have, oh, there go the dogs. Yep, trial and error is used when you have three terms. Okay, three terms. And we said we were going to look at number 9. So do you remember if there's three terms, you automatically set up your parentheses, right? How do I know what the signs should be? Yep. Remember, if that's a plus, that means they're the same, and then this tells me what they're the same of, so I've got my two signs. Okay. I start over here with the 12, right? And we say, hey, start with the smallest number. So I would start with 4x and 3x. Okay. And so then I go to the 6, and I know I'm going to start with the smallest numbers, which would be the 3 and the 2. Well, if it's 3 and 2, then where are they going to go, right? I can't put the 3 here. I'd have to put the 3 here and the 2 here. Okay, so does that mean I'm done? Does that guarantee that this is going to work? No, I still have to do what? I have to check it, right? And in order to check it, I need to look at the outer and the inner. So on the outer, I have negative 8x. On the inner, I have negative 9x. And that equals negative 17x, right? Oh, that's how I know it works. So that works, which means the actual answer is this part, right? Why don't you guys try number 10 all by your little self, and let's see how that goes. All right, let's see. Did you guys have both minus signs again, right? And let's see. In order to get the 18, will 6x and 3x work? Let's see. I'd have to put the 2 here and the 1 here, and that's not going to give me 37. So since the 2 and 1 is my only choice for that one, for 18, how about we try 9 and 2, right? So 2 and 9. Is that going to work? No, that's not going to give me 37. So let's try again. How about we try 18 and then just 1x? Will that give me negative? That sure will, right? That's going to give me negative 37 in the middle. So that works. How'd you do on that one? That one was kind of one of the harder ones that we've done just because we're not used to using 18. We're used to using like 6 and 3 or 9 and 2, right? Okay. And then factor by grouping, that's what we learned last time. Now you said you did great on it then. How do I know when to use factor by grouping? Do you remember what we said? Yep. Factor by grouping is used when you have how many terms? That's right, 4 terms. Okay. So let's see. It hasn't been that long. Do you think you could kind of describe a process for factor by grouping? So we're going to we're going to do what? We're going to group the first two and then the last two. Okay, so from the first two, how about we take out a 3x, and that leaves me with 2y plus 5. Bring down that sign. And then over here, 2y plus 5 doesn't have a common factor. Do you remember what we said to do with that? We said just put it like 1 is the common factor. And so I have my 2y plus 5. Now, is this going to work? Hopefully, you remembered how we determine if it's going to work or not, right? If these parentheses are the same, that means you know you're doing it right. So I'm going to take 2y plus 5 out now as my common factor. And then what do I have left? Well, I have 3x from the first term. Bring down the plus sign. What do I have left here? If I take that parenthesis out, I just have the plus 1, right? So that means this is my factored form on that one. So now I want you to notice the difference in the directions, okay? On the first page, I told you exactly what method to use, right? On the first three, I said use common factor. You didn't even have to think about it. On the next ones, I said, hey, use difference of squares. You didn't even have to think about it. And then I said use trial and error, right? The one with the 2 parentheses. And then I said, hey, use grouping. But now look at the directions for this whole page. It just says use the appropriate method, right? Use the appropriate method. So that means you have to decide, well, how do I know? Well, look up here. Common factor, any number of terms. Difference of squares is only when you have 2 terms. Trial and error, only when you have 3 terms. Factor by grouping, only when you have 4 terms. So really it comes down to what? Knowing how many terms. Okay? So when I look at number 13, I see 2 terms. Well, is it a difference of squares? Well, sure it is. Isn't it going to be 2 plus x and 2 minus x? Okay. Let's see. Look at number 18. Look at number 18. Okay, when I look at that, how many terms? 3. So what method do I use? Hopefully you guessed what? Hopefully you guessed trial and error. Why don't you try it? See if you can come up with an answer on that one. How did you do? Did you get the same thing I did? I think that's going to give us the positive 41x in the middle, right? Good. Let's see. How about we skip down to number 21? Look at number 21. What method should we use on that one? Yep, hopefully you guessed it. 3 terms, so it's going to be trial and error. Okay. Why don't you try this one also by yourself and then we'll compare. How'd you do? Did you get both plus signs? Let me think through this. For 30, I might try 6x and 5x. If that's the case, then for 6, if I tried 3 and 2, I can't use 3 and 2 because I can't put either one of those in here. So if I choose 6 and 1, I'm going to have a 1 and a 6. Does that give me 41? 36 and 5. Yep, sure does. That works, right? It's amazing how when you follow the process, it works. Okay, now we have a new set of directions. It says what? Factor completely. Completely. What does that mean? It means that there's very likely more than one kind of factoring. All right, so let's do a little refresher. When we've done this before, remember we said if you're factoring completely, before you do anything else, no matter how many terms, you should always look and see if there's a common factor, right? After you try common factor, then it's all about how many terms, right? How many terms? Question mark. Because if there's 2 terms, you know difference of squares. If there's 3 terms, you know trial and error. Okay, so let's see. What should we look at down here? How about we try number 24? Okay. Now don't be fooled. I see 2 terms. That doesn't mean it's automatically difference of squares, because what do I do first? What did we say? First of all, is there a common factor? What about on this one? Is there a common factor? Yeah, there is. How much can I take out of 32 and 18? I think 2 is the most, isn't it? If I take out a 2, I'm going to have 16x squared minus 9. Okay, does that mean I'm done? No, that's what it means by completely. Maybe there's another kind of factoring. And do you see inside the parenthesis, isn't that a difference of squares? So I'm going to leave the 2 on the outside, and then that's going to turn into 4x plus 3 and 4x minus 3. So there is my answer. Okay, the first one is factored, and a lot of people would say, well, would I get it right if I had that? Well, you wouldn't get it completely right. What you've done is correct so far, but it's not finished, because it's not till you get down here that it's actually factored completely. Okay, how about we try 27? And I'm just going to say one thing on 27, then I'm going to let you go from there. People tend to make a mistake on problems like 27 because they see 4 terms and then they automatically start in on grouping. And grouping does work with 4 terms, but remember, what did we say you should always try first? Always try common factor. So on 27, is there a common factor all the way across, meaning all 4 terms, is there a common factor? Well, I think there is. Won't 2 go into all 4 of those? So if I take out a common factor of 2, that's going to leave me with 3x cubed plus 2x squared plus 6x plus 4. Okay? So I've done common factor. Okay, great. But now I need to work on what's inside here, right? Just for that part. Ignore everything else. Just look at that part. Hey, I see. Oh, yes. The dogs are going crazy. Again, I'm sure you guys can hear that. It's like they're singing to me. Oh, I think there's something very important. I think they see a blade of grass blowing in the wind. I don't know if you know anything about schnauzers, but they're known for their barking. Yes, they're adorable, but they're known for their barking. Okay, sorry about that. So I'm going to keep factoring on the inside and see if I can do factor by grouping. So remember how we said you group the first 2 and you group the last 2. So from the first 2, I could take out an x squared. And let's see, I'm going to have 3x plus 2. Bring down your plus sign. From the last 2, I can take out a 2. I'm going to have 3x plus 2. And do you remember how to finish up the grouping part? Remember how we said, oh, good, if the parentheses are the same, I'm doing it right. So my common factor is 3x plus 2. And then what do I have left? I have the x squared and the plus 2. So that's what I get just when I did the inside up here. But don't forget, you still have that 2 that was out in front, right? So the 2 is out in front. So all of this is my final answer. Okay? So let's see. How about we'll do one last problem together. Why don't we try number 29? Be careful. Let's see if you can do it all by yourself. Okay, I'm curious. Did anybody just jump on it and automatically say that it was difference of squares? Because it is. It is difference of squares, right? 100 is a perfect square. 100x squared is a perfect square. But what should you have looked for first, right? What do we always look for first? Couldn't we take out a common factor of 100? And if I take out 100 from the first term, I just have a 1 minus, and if I take a 100 out of the second term, 100x squared, I have x squared. Okay, so I've done common factor. Am I done? Well, no, I'm not. Because inside the parentheses here, isn't that a difference of squares? So if I just factor 1 minus x squared, it's going to be 1 plus x and 1 minus x. Yeah, 1 is a perfect square. A lot of people forget about that. So that's just for this part. Now don't forget, hey, we still had that 100 out in front, right? So keep that there. So my final answer is this whole thing. Okay, so here's what you need to do. You need to complete this review. Go through and try all of the factoring on here. I've got the answers posted. My suggestion to you is maybe try all of them first. See what you can do by yourself, and then go back, pull out the answers, and check your answers, and make sure you understand and fix the ones that you got wrong. And if you can't figure out, what the problem was, let me know. Send me a message. I can help you through it. I can even, add another video that kind of has several problems worked through that maybe were some of the common mistakes. So please, you guys, don't just kind of sit in silence. I mean, you certainly don't do that at school, do you? You don't sit in silence. You ask questions. So you can still ask questions even though we're not in the same room. Okay? Good luck with that, and then don't forget we have the test coming up on Friday.